Have you ever noticed how mornings can feel sharp and productive? You sit down, your brain is firing, you're ticking off tasks, and then right after lunch it all collapses? Suddenly your eyelids get heavy, your focus scatters, and you feel like you're moving through molasses. You reach for another coffee, maybe a sugary snack, but it doesn't help for long. Within an hour, you're back in the fog. And by late afternoon, you wonder where your energy went. It's not laziness. It's not lack of discipline. It's biology. And the surprising truth is, the biggest factor in that crash isn't what you eat, but when you eat. One tiny shift in the timing of your food can completely change how your brain powers through the afternoon. Here's why. Your body runs on a rhythm. It's not just your sleep cycle that follows a clock. Your digestion, your hormones, your energy levels all pulse in waves. When you eat, your body diverts resources to process that food. Blood sugar rises, insulin surges, and your nervous system shifts into a rest and digest state. That's why right after a big lunch, your brain wants to slow down. It's literally competing with your stomach for energy. The heavier the meal, the harder the crash. But here's the key. It's not the food itself that's sabotaging your afternoon. It's the timing. By slightly shifting when you eat, you can flatten the crash and unlock hours of stable energy. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a campfire. If you dump a huge log on it all at once, the flames suffocate before catching. That's your brain after a giant midday meal. But if you feed the fire gradually, with smaller logs at the right intervals, the flame stays steady and strong. That's what a food timing shift does for your energy. It keeps your mental flame burning without choking it out. So what is the shift? I call it the light-midday, heavy-later principle. The idea is simple. Instead of loading your biggest meal at lunch, you keep lunch light and move the heavier portion of your food toward dinner when your natural rhythm is winding down. That one change can cut the energy crash dramatically. Why? Because a lighter lunch doesn't overwhelm your system. Your blood sugar stays steadier, your digestion doesn't hog resources, and your nervous system doesn't sink into lethargy. You stay alert, clear, and capable for the critical hours of the afternoon when most people are fighting brain fog. Let's break it down into 3 pillars: stabilize, delay, anchor. Stabilize your midday energy, delay the heavy intake, anchor your rhythm in a way your brain thrives on. First, stabilize. This means thinking of lunch not as a reward or a break where you finally get to eat, but as fuel to sustain. A lighter meal, more protein, some fiber, minimal heavy carbs, keeps your blood sugar curve flat instead of spiking and crashing. Neuroscience shows that large swings in glucose directly impair attention and increase fatigue. A stabilized curve means a stabilized brain, and you don't need to overcomplicate it. It could be something as simple as a salad with chicken and olive oil, or eggs and vegetables instead of a giant pasta bowl. The shift is less about the specific food and more about avoiding the overload in the middle of the day. Second, delay. The brain craves rhythm. When you push the bulk of your calorie intake later, you're aligning with your natural circadian tendency to slow down in the evening. That's when it makes sense to rest, digest, and repair. By delaying the heavier intake to dinner, you're not forcing your body to process a food mountain when you still need to perform mentally. Instead, you give your system permission to digest when you don't need to be sharp. This simple delay of a few hours transfers the crash from your productive afternoon to your restful evening, where it actually supports recovery and sleep. Third, anchor. This is about consistency. The body loves predictability. If you shift your eating rhythm once, you'll feel the difference immediately. But when you anchor it, making the lighter lunch and heavier dinner your norm, your brain begins to adapt. Hormones like insulin and cortisol regulate more smoothly. Your digestive system anticipates the pattern, and your energy stabilizes across the day. This anchored rhythm doesn't just stop the afternoon crash, it gradually retrains your biology to stay sharper longer. Within a week, you'll notice afternoons that feel lighter, more productive, less desperate for caffeine. Within a month, the crash won't even register as normal anymore. You'll wonder how you ever lived with it. Now let's ground this in a real-life picture. Imagine 2 versions of your day. Version 1, you eat a heavy lunch, maybe a sandwich, fries, maybe something creamy or carb-loaded. At first you feel good, but 30 minutes later your brain dips. You sip coffee, but it only spikes you and drops you harder. By 3 o'clock your inbox feels impossible. You end the day exhausted, thinking you just don't have enough willpower. Version 2, you eat a lighter lunch, maybe lean protein and vegetables. You exhale, but you don't sink. 1 hour passes, 2 hours, you're still alert. By 3 o'clock, instead of slumping, you're clear enough to finish strong. Dinner comes. You enjoy it fully without guilt. And instead of crashing in the middle of your workday, You crash when you're supposed to. At night, in bed, where it actually restores you. Same foods, different timing, different life. And here's the psychological trick that makes this easy. You're not depriving yourself. You're simply shifting the reward. Most people resist lighter lunches because they think it means sacrifice. But it's not about eating less, it's about eating smarter. You still get to enjoy the heavier meal. You're just moving it to a time when your body wants to slow down anyway. That reframe makes it sustainable. It's not a diet, it's not a restriction, it's a rhythm. And rhythms are easy to live with. You might be asking, but won't I feel hungrier in the afternoon with a lighter lunch? The interesting thing is, hunger is heavily influenced by blood sugar swings. A heavy carb lunch spikes you high, then drops you lower, making you feel ravenous by mid-afternoon. A lighter, protein-centered lunch flattens that curve, meaning you actually feel more steady and less hungry later. So paradoxically, eating less at lunch often means fewer cravings. And even if you feel a dip, that's where a simple snack can bridge the gap. A handful of nuts, some fruit, something light. The difference is that snack won't knock you out, it just keeps you humming until dinner. From a neuroscience perspective, this works because of something called postprandial somnolence, the fancy term for food coma. It's the result of increased blood flow to the gut and shifts in neurotransmitters after eating. Heavier meals increase serotonin and melatonin production, which literally make you sleepy. When you shift the heaviness away from midday, you're controlling those neurotransmitter surges. You're telling your brain, not now, wait until later, and your brain listens. The result is more stable dopamine during the afternoon, the neurotransmitter of motivation and drive. In plain terms, you feel like doing things, not like curling up under your desk. And here's the most empowering part. You don't have to overhaul your entire diet to feel the shift. You don't need to start fasting for hours or cutting out food groups or turning your lunch into a punishment. This is not about restriction, it's about rhythm. Simply moving the bulk of your calories later in the day lets you keep enjoying the foods you love while aligning them with the timing your body handles best. That's why this works so quickly, because you're not fighting biology, you're flowing with it. Now, let's talk about how to apply this in real life. Imagine tomorrow at lunch. Instead of going for the heavy default option, you choose something lighter. Maybe it's a portion of protein with vegetables. Maybe it's a smaller serving of what you normally eat. You finish, and instead of that creeping fog, you notice yourself still alert. At 2 o'clock, when you'd normally slump, you're still steady. That experience alone will convince you more than any words. And then, when you sit down to dinner later, you allow yourself to enjoy the heavier meal guilt-free, knowing it won't sabotage your workday. It's a shift that reinforces itself because the payoff is immediate and undeniable. There's also a deeper psychological layer here. Afternoons are when most people lose battles with willpower. They think, I'm weak, I can't focus, I need more discipline. But what if it's not discipline at all? What if it's timing? By making this one adjustment, you take the weight of guilt off your shoulders. You realize, there's nothing wrong with me. My energy crash wasn't a character flaw. It was biology reacting to timing. That reframe is liberating. It transforms the way you think about your productivity. You stop blaming yourself and start working with your body instead of against it. And let's address the elephant in the room, caffeine. Many people rely on an afternoon coffee to survive the crash. But caffeine is a band-aid. It pushes your system harder when what it actually needs is balance. The result is a roller coaster of highs and lows, often followed by worse sleep at night. When you use food timing to stabilize energy, you naturally reduce your reliance on caffeine. You don't need the third cup of coffee because your energy hasn't crashed in the first place. That's the sustainable win. You're not fixing the symptom, you're fixing the cause. The neuroscience makes this clear. When you avoid overwhelming your system with a midday food load, you prevent the surge in serotonin and melatonin that make you drowsy. Instead, your dopamine and norepinephrine, the neurotransmitters of motivation and focus, stay balanced. That's why you feel sharper, not just less sleepy. It's not just about avoiding the crash, it's about unlocking the chemistry of alertness. And because neurotransmitters adapt over time, the more consistently you practice this shift, the more your baseline focus improves. You're not only stabilizing afternoons, you're training your brain to expect and sustain higher levels of clarity. Now picture this not just for tomorrow, but for your future self. A week of lighter lunches and you're already noticing you get more done in less time. A month, and your colleagues start asking why you always seem so alert in meetings while they're yawning. A year, and your entire rhythm feels different. You have more consistent energy, better sleep, and sharper thinking, all from one food timing shift. It's almost unfair how much power such a small adjustment gives you. The key takeaway is simple but profound. Energy isn't only about what you eat, it's about when you eat. Your afternoons don't have to be a graveyard of productivity. You don't need to keep fighting the same battle every day. With the light-midday, heavy-later principle, you free your afternoons from the crash, without sacrifice, without endless coffee, without guilt. It's not about eating less, it's about eating smarter, aligning with the rhythms your body is already trying to follow. So here's your challenge. Tomorrow, experiment. Make your lunch lighter than usual, save the heavier food for dinner, and observe what happens to your afternoon. Notice how your focus holds, how your body feels, how much smoother your day becomes. That one test will show you more than theory ever could. Once you've felt the difference, you'll never want to go back to the old rhythm. Because you'll realize you're not doomed to the afternoon crash, you're in control of it. And that control comes down to one tiny, elegant shift in timing. Try it, feel the freedom, and let your afternoons become the sharpest, most productive part of your day.